Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Good afternoon. Joining us on the line now is Lewis Crompton. He's a former retail worker who turned his dream of financial independence into reality by building a £1 million fortune in just 4 years. Through his company, Star Trading, he coaches housewives, retirees, and people just fed up with their day job to learn to trade efficiently and successfully from their kitchen table. Welcome to the show, Lewis.
Thanks very much for having me, Hannah. Good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. So tell us how you got into trading, how you went about learning it yourself.
Well, it was completely accidental, completely unexpected, if I'm honest. I was working in retail. Before working in retail, I was actually trained as a counselor, a therapist. I grew up in the church, which is where I learned how to be a counselor and a therapist within that world. So numbers were never really my strong suit. They still aren't.
That's good to know.
Yes, yeah. And I think people have an assumption they need to be very good at maths, very good at numbers in order to be able to trade. And that just isn't true. Really, the way that I trade is based upon pattern recognition. So yeah, it was never the expected thing for me. I remember doing the careers thing and I was never going to amount to anything special. So they said at school, and I found myself working retail, like I said, for various different reasons, and realizing it wasn't the life that I really wanted to live. I didn't want to give the best parts of my week, the best of my energy to a job that would replace me if I was to drop dead next week, and give the worst of myself, the stressed out, tired out version of myself, to the people I actually loved and cared about. So I started looking at other ways I could generate income. And I was in my early 20s. So I was about 24 when I first started looking into this stuff. And I mainly wanted to travel. I wanted freedom. I wanted adventure. And working on Marylebone High Street, trapped in an office building, wasn't really giving me that. And so that's when I discovered trading.
Wow, interesting. I love the fact that you're motivated by freedom, not just money. It's a different way of looking at it, isn't it? Instead of just thinking, I want more money so I can buy stuff. It's more about wanting more money to have the freedom to do, or as you say, travel, adventure, and do whatever you like with it.
Completely. And I think a lot of people, if they're honest with themselves, when they say they want more money, that isn't really the truth. No one is the dragon from Lord of the Rings just hoarding up gold. They want that money to do something particular for them, whether it is traveling the world like it was for me back then, whether it is they want to spend more time with their family, whether it is they just have a passion project that they love. Maybe they're an artist and they just want to paint and enjoy painting and the passion and the joy that gives them, but it doesn't necessarily make money. So they need to find a different way to generate income that is going to give them that time freedom as well. So I don't think many of us really just want money. It's never really about the money in my experience. It's about what that money can actually do, what that money can bring us, what it can give us, and the choices that it gives us ultimately.
Yeah. Something that you said in an article that I read that I thought was really interesting. A lot of people, when they think of trading, probably people who don't necessarily know much about it, might see it as gambling in some way. But you say that's absolutely not the case. It is a skill set. It's not gambling.
Completely, yes. When you think of gambling, you think of chance, you think of luck. And the reality is trading is a form of investing. Just like buying stocks and shares and holding on hope that they're going to go up, which I'm sure a lot of people are doing during COVID with the shares and stocks and bonds that they may have been holding back then. But you don't have to rely on just that traditional form of investing. If you purchase property, you're a landlord, you invest in property that way. That is another form of investment which also carries risk. If you are setting up a business or you're already a business owner, you know that has inherent risks. There's not a guarantee. But just because there isn't a guarantee doesn't make it a gamble. Yes, there's certain things which may be outside of your control, but with anything where you have elements outside of your control, and I love the car analogy. I use this all the time in so many different areas of my life. But when you drive a car, I always say I'm very confident in my own ability. What I'm slightly made nervous by is other people's driving ability on the roads, as I'm sure we have all experienced.
Yeah.
So although I can't control their behavior, what I can control is my behavior. What I can control is putting my seatbelt on. What I can control is looking in the wing mirrors and checking the cars around me and all of those types of things. And when I follow those safety measures, I become a safe driver. So when it comes to trading financial markets, whether that is Forex, whether that's stocks and shares, whether that's indexes or commodities like gold and silver, because we can trade anything when we have the right skills, as long as you're following the correct safety measures and the correct safety procedures, you really do lower the level of risk that you have in investing. But that's not to say you eliminate the risk. It is still a form of investing.
Yeah. So all those different aspects of trading that you mentioned there, are they all a different kind of skill set? Is it really important that you know the difference between investing in all those different things and how they all work?
It depends on the style of analysis you want to choose. So there's a style of analysis called fundamental analysis, where you would want to go into the nuts and bolts. You'd want to understand how every different market is behaving, how it's operating. If we look at fundamental analysis when it comes to stocks and shares, you would want to know who are the managing directors, who is the CEO, all of the people, what their goals are, what their plans are, what the profit and earnings ratios are, all of those kinds of nuts and bolts. And we call that fundamental analysis. What I tend to teach people within the STAR trading method, which is the method I created, is about pattern recognition. So it's about looking at how these different markets, whether it is Forex or commodities or indexes or even individual stocks and shares, how is that market, how is that asset class behaving? How is it moving? And we can use those movements to see what is most likely going to happen next. And therefore we can place trades far quicker. We can place investments far quicker than if we were having to lean on fundamental analysis as well. So I'm not going to say that fundamental analysis doesn't work. It does. But my key thing with trading is about giving people back time. And when you use fundamental analysis, you will spend a lot longer on your process to place an investment. Whereas with my methodology, you're looking at a maximum of 30 minutes per day once you know what you're doing and what you're looking for.
Okay, that's interesting. So where do you recommend people start if it's their first time ever? Do you recommend things like stocks and shares or Forex or, as I say, all the different things that you mentioned? Where's a good place to start?
If you're picking a specific market, it doesn't really matter too much. I do tend to get people that I train and educate on this stuff. We have a list of about 30 different markets, which is predominantly made up of Forex, but not solely Forex. Now, the reason we do that is because there's a lot of movement that happens in the Forex market. You have around, I think it's $5-6 trillion every single day moving in and around the Forex markets. And you want that kind of movement to happen because that creates patterns, and it's patterns that we use to identify opportunities for us to generate an income from the markets. People historically would maybe say that the Forex market is very volatile. And I think now we have a new kid on the block, that good old Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies. Now that is the Wild West. And there's a lot of volatility that you see there. Whereas Forex isn't really that volatile, but what it does have is a lot of volume. And that volume means there's a lot of people trading it. There's a lot of people investing in it. There's a lot of movement. And that's very, very useful for us as traders. That tends to be a really good place to start. But I would highly recommend anybody who wants to begin investing in any asset class, not just necessarily trading, that you actually get some form of knowledge behind you so you know at minimum how to stay safe when you're approaching this.
Yeah. And can you just clarify what the difference is between Forex and normal kind of stocks and shares trading?
Yes, brilliant. So I'm assuming everybody knows what Forex means.
So, that's all right. Yes, Forex, most people probably do.
Forex stands for foreign exchange, so foreign currencies. So when we trade foreign currencies, foreign exchange, what you're not actually doing is you're not buying US dollar and then selling it a little bit later. What the difference is when you trade Forex versus a stock and a share is you will trade the value fluctuation between two currency pairs. So I would trade euro US dollar as a market because I need the pair to see the valuation change between the two. And that's what creates the chart. That's what creates the market. Whereas with an individual stock and share, for example, if I was buying Apple stocks, I would buy that stock, I would own that stock, or at least a portion of that stock. And I would wait to see if the value of that stock goes up or down.
Interesting. It's funny. It's I think this is one of those subjects, because I know a little bit about it. I've had a little bit of experience with it. So there's certain things you're saying that I'm like, oh yeah, I know what he means there. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure people listening are the same. And then other things you're saying, and you could be speaking Japanese. You really need to understand it, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember when I first started, I was very, very overwhelmed. I didn't really get it, to be honest. I just knew that this was going to be a way that I could create the life that I wanted. And so I went through the process of learning, and it took me about 7 months of looking every day. I only spent about an hour a day learning, but within 7 months, I was able to be generating enough of an income that I was able to hand my notice in, fire my boss, and start traveling the world. And that's where things started to really get exciting. And I started to create this life that I wanted based on my own terms, my own desires. And that's where everything kind of began to grow for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know, going back to it not being gambling side of things, I totally respect and appreciate that it isn't, but I guess you do need to be really careful. It's one of those things, once you start getting good at it, once you're understanding what you're doing, the markets, how it all works, you have to presumably keep a check on yourself that you don't do something stupid or too risky, because I guess it is one of those things that you could lose all of your money doing this.
I think when you don't know what you're doing, that statement can be true. However, when you do know what you're doing, when you follow a process, you have a risk management system, a safety measure in place, and you stick to that safety process. We always say to our mentees, our students, and I teach this all over the world, and no matter where I teach, whether it's for a really long period of time or a really short period of time, my goal is always to, at minimum, give people the structure to stay safe in the market. So the way that we do that and the methodology that we teach, it actually becomes mathematically impossible for you to lose all of the capital from your investment account if you follow our methodology. So regardless of what people read or learn from me, they will always know that process to stay safe in the financial markets.
Great. It makes sense that that's the most important thing, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's actually a quote I learned from Richard Branson. And he says that you should always protect the downside because then you maximize the upside. So always make sure you've put more reward to your potential risk. And that way you just really do make sure you're far more likely to succeed. And so that's what we do with our trading as well.
Yeah. So when did you decide to start teaching and passing your skills on to others?
There was a moment for me when I was traveling. I was in Durban and I'd been teaching actually for a little bit of time for some other people, the people who actually taught me. So when I first started, I paid to do a mentorship and it actually cost me half my annual salary to do that mentorship. So I didn't have the money. So I took out a credit card and a loan and I went all in on this thing. And I'm really glad I did because it then led me to what I've created and developed for myself. So I'd been trading myself for about 6 years. And when I was in Durban traveling, and I just realized that I wasn't scratching the itch anymore of helping people the way that I wanted to help people like I had when I was doing a lot of counseling work and a lot of therapy work before I emotionally burnt out from doing that kind of work. And I realized that I needed to go back a little bit to that way of helping people and serving people. And so I just looked at my life. I looked at what I had, looked at what I could do. I knew I didn't want to go fully down the emotional route again. So I was like, well, I've got this skill set. I've got trading. Trading has completely revolutionized, transformed and changed my life for the better, given me so much choice, so much freedom. Why don't I now start helping other people truly master that skill as well? And I wanted to do it under my own steam because I developed my own systems, my own strategies that I felt were simpler and easier to pick up. And like I said, only take 30 minutes a day to implement once you know what you're doing. And so I decided to launch my company, Star Trading, just over 4 years ago. So I was 6 years in to my own trading journey before I started my own education company. And we've been running now for a little bit over 4 years.
Oh, fantastic. And it must be really rewarding helping other people to achieve financial freedom. It must be great when they're coming back to you saying, oh my goodness, look at what's just happened.
It is amazing. I mean, from little things like, thank you so much, Lewis. I had enough money to pay for my dog's vet surgery. If I hadn't been trading, I would have had to let my dog go.
Gosh.
Just little things like that, all the way up to big things like I've been able to quit my job. I've been able to help my kids get on the property ladder. I've been able to pay my way out of debt. All of across the whole spectrum, when I hear it, it is incredibly meaningful and wonderful. And as anybody who's involved in business will know, it's not always easy, even when you love what you do. But those moments where you hear that make it all worthwhile. And it really is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, I bet. I've just had a message from one of our listeners, Cynthia, who says, is he married, Hannah?
I am married. I am, yes. I was about to say sadly, and I realised I shouldn't say that.
No, good for you.
No, I am happily married, yes, very happily married.
Brilliant.
If anybody asks, very happily married.
Good stuff. Well, it's been lovely to chat with you, Lewis Crompton. Thank you so much for joining us. And if listeners want to get in touch with you, if they want any advice, if they want to find out more about trading and finding their own financial freedom, there is a website. It's startradingnow.com. So they can contact you via that. Lewis, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real joy.